Hey guys, AKIL'S here. In today's episode of the Trading Coach Podcast, we're going to talk about my very awkward indicator phase, or my very awkward phase of learning technical analysis, I guess you can say. And what I mean by that was the journey or the path that I went through when I first started learning about technical analysis, and I was learning all this cool new information. I started learning too much information, and all of it was kind of tangling and intertwined together until it became this massive web of confusion. I'll actually show you a chart that visually represents exactly what I'm talking about. Speaking of the visuals, this is a visual episode of the Trading Coach Podcast, so head over to Spotify. I know you can watch the video versions over there, or head over to the YouTube channel. By the way, very, very close to 55,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel. We're like 100 and so away. So if you're not subscribed, please hit that button. If you know someone that should be subscribed, tell them to do it and help me reach that goal. We're killing it, but I don't want to give up now. And if you aren't able to catch a video version of it, don't worry, you can still enjoy it. I think there's like one section, maybe a couple minutes in the beginning, where I'm talking about something that's on my screen and you won't be able to see it, but I do explain it later. But just think of it as like one of those robbery bank heist movies where there's a web of lasers and the people have to kind of manipulate their body through those lasers to get to the ultimate prize. It'll make sense once we start the podcast. Oh, and also I'm going to share with you the story of how I became known as the Naked Trader. Let's hop in. Indicator trading in general, I'm going to throw a few things up here because we don't have a lot to talk about today, so we can dig into some strategy development. So other methods, right? If you're using kind of indicators only, other methods of like targets, I always take price action target and stuff like that. Other methods are using your indicator as targets as well. Now, when you're developing a strategy, you have a few options. You can, I like using multiple indicators for multiple reasons. So I'll have usually a maximum of 3. I don't want to get too indicator heavy. I don't want to be like back in the day where I had my chart looked like a Picasso painting. Not a Picasso. What's the someone? Let me just show you a picture real quick. I can probably find my chart on Google. Let's Google search AKIL'S first trading chart. The chart that had like a million different indicators. So this is what my trading chart looked like. Yeah, add about 4 or 5 more, and that was me. My chart actually, this is no lie either. This actually might be my chart. My chart actually looked like this at one point too. I went through a phase. So I went through a phase in trading. And again, so to give you some perspective, right? As when I was an investor in the stock market, I was an investor that used, I guess you can call it fundamental analysis. It was, I call it common sense analysis, but I wasn't a technical trader. Like, I didn't know what a Japanese candlestick was. Every once in a while I looked at a line chart just to see like what prices were and dips and highs, but I didn't use anything chart related. It was all just like my brain and my heart and my feel, right? And I was really good at that. And so I didn't learn technical analysis until I went to Forex and I started becoming more of an active trader. So I went through these many phases, and like many of you guys, you can imagine, you go through these phases and you're learning different things and you try different things out. So in that first charting example, right, I was learning about indicators. So what I would do is I would watch a YouTube video or read an article. Usually it's reading an article because YouTube wasn't as heavy back then, old. But I'd read an article and it would tell me about this indicator. Yeah, the MACD, the most popular indicator. And so I'd plug it on my chart and I'd start, using it in quotes because I wasn't really using it, but I thought I was using it. And then I'm using it, it's on there. And then I would read about another indicator, the Arun indicator. That tells me that. All right, just plug it into my chart. And again, I was jobless, so I was just doing this all the time, right? So I was just adding indicators and indicators and indicators to my chart until I had more indicators than chart, right? Seriously. And I remember it got to the point where I was developing a strategy. And again, I'm doing the air quote things because at the time I was thinking I was developing a strategy. But in hindsight, I don't know what the hell I was doing. Definitely wasn't developing a strategy. I was just we talked about cooking earlier, right? There's an art to cooking, right? You season things the right way. You put things in at the right time. You let it cook for the right amount of time. I was just throwing things in a pot. I had a pot, it had water, and I was just in the fridge just like throwing random stuff in it. And I thought I was cooking. You know, like when you're a kid and you cook for the first time, you make your parents something, you're like, hey, look, I made soup. And they're like, is that a raw piece of meat in there? Try it, daddy. Right? One of those type deals. That's what I was doing on my trading. I was serving raw meat. So I had, there was one point where I was trading 13 indicators, and I swore I was a genius. This is the fun part of it. I swore I was a genius because I had an indicator for every like different thing. I had like a momentum indicator, then I had like a reversal indicator, then I had a this indicator and a that indicator. And my trading plan was simple. When all three indicators aligned, I'd take the trade, right? And funny enough, as you guys can probably guess, I never actually took any trades, which is probably for the better, because all three indicators never aligned, right? I would get like 3 or 4 that aligned. I'm like, okay, 10 more to go. And then like, as soon as like the other like 3, 4, 5 started aligning, then the other ones would reverse and do something else. And it was a weird phase, but it was my awkward phase. I was experimenting and learning and drinking a lot, as Sean said. Yeah, lots of drinking. Water though, I couldn't afford alcohol, Sean. Lots of just water. I would pretend it was vodka, but I couldn't afford it, so it was just water. So then after that phase, I went through a price action phase where I was fed up with indicators. I was like, man, this stinks. I'm never getting signals. I can't even see my price chart. And at the time, I'm learning about like support and resistance, and I'm like, man, this seems like more of my thing, right? I start to find myself a little bit in there. So if you're looking at the chart in front of you, picture this chart as being like a box of yarn where all the different balls of yarn have become unraveled and they're all tangled amongst each other in this spider web, right? That's what it looked like. Because what I was doing was I was learning about support and resistance, both trendline and horizontal. I was learning about multiple time frame analysis, and I was doing it all at once. So I would start on the daily chart, right? And what I would do is I had like red lines, thick red lines for the daily. And I would draw in all my levels of like horizontal support and resistance. When I say all my levels, I mean, I would go like 10 years back. For what reason? I don't know. The more the merrier, right? Someone probably told me look 10 years back. So I would go like 10 years back and I would draw on these horizontal lines. But then I would also draw on all of the trend lines. So I would start connecting highs and lows. And if you guys have ever drawn on trend lines, right, you know it's usually just like not one point. You usually have like one anchor point and then you start connecting it to like 8 different points. I would do that. So I'd have all these like lines pointing up, all these lines pointing down, like look like a freaking laser show, right? But there's more. I would then go down to my 4-hour time frame and do the same thing, horizontal and trend line. I would then go down to my hourly time frame and do the same thing, horizontal and trend line. And by the time it was ready to trade, I also did this with pivot points. At some point I added Fibonacci's. Like it was a mess. I was trading a box full of yarn. And I couldn't even see candles on my chart. And once again, I never actually got into a trade because every time I was at a point where a line got broken, it would be right at another line. I'd be like, okay, whew, yeah, good filter, kept me out, right? Like it was the dumbest thing ever. But I went through this phase. So the good thing is, right, the moral of this story, I guess, I never actually lost any money doing this stuff because I never actually had a trading signal. My chart was so confusing that I never actually got a signal. So it was a positive thing, right? Right, guys? Positive. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, weird phases. So moving on from that, I went indicatorless, right? I stripped it all off and became the naked trader. Indicatorless, I decided trend lines weren't my thing. They were too confusing. They didn't make any sense. I had like 8 trend lines coming from the same anchor point. I had no idea which was right or wrong or whatever like that. So I simplified it. I went straight to price action, straight to horizontal support and resistance, straight to really no indicator. I started there and worked my way up. I eventually added an indicator. I don't count the RSI as my fave. I don't really count the ATR. It's an indicator, but I don't actually look at it. It just gives me the number I need for stops and whatever like that. But you can technically add that one. But as I got more into strategy development, I came back to indicators. So I'm not an indicator hater, despite like what the internet thinks, because I'm a price action trader, so I have to hate indicators. I just look at indicators as supporting price action, which if you think about it, indicators should support price action, because let me ask you this, right? Is there any such thing as a non-lagging indicator? I'll give you the answer before you type it in. No. All indicators lag. Guess what else lags? Price action. Price action is the best indicator we have. Price action lags too, because a candle doesn't move up until something makes it move up. An indicator doesn't move up or down until price moves up and down. So everything is lagging. So I've always valued price action over indicators, since price action is what makes the indicator indicate whatever it's indicating. So that's why I went to a less is more approach. But when I started doing system development and working in some more things, I've always wanted to develop a kind of indicator-based system, mainly for you guys. When I got into coaching and I understand how many traders actually struggle, I want to develop something as simple as possible that takes the discretion out of it, because it takes a lot of years to kind of build proper discretion in the market. And if we can, our whole goal at Tier 1 Trading is to kind of, shortcut that learning curve. So the question is, what am I going to use indicators for? Well, there's 3 different parts of the trade that indicators can be useful in, and I don't think you need to use more than 3, right? You can have one as your filter, right? So your filter is something that tells you yes or no. So for example, if you're trading like let's say a trend continuation strategy, an easy filter could be, any guesses before I give you the answer? What do you think could be an easy filter? Obviously there's a lot of questions here, but what could be an easy filter if you're looking for like a trend continuation strategy? Something that will tell you either yes, you can take the trade in this direction, or no, you shall not take the trade in that direction. Any thoughts there? I'll give you a clue. I'm thinking of something on screen. Again, there's probably millions of correct answers. I'm thinking of, a moving average, an EMA. Yeah. So like if signal comes above, I only trade bullish if my bullish signal comes above the EMA. I only trade bearish if my bearish signal comes below the EMA. That's a simple filter. You see what that does? You can't take a bullish continuation trade if price is below your blank EMA, because your blank EMA is filtering you, telling you that you're in a bearish state, right? If you're using it for that. So that's a filter indicator. Another one would be an entry indicator, right? And this is assuming you're not using like price action as your entry. So this is what I just showed you with the RSI neck breaker, right? Where we're using that RSI, that break of the neck, right? That rotation, to tell us, boom, once this level is broken, you enter the trade, the entry signal. Another one could be an exit signal, and this is one that people don't often use, right? Now, we always talk about price action stuff here, but you can use indicators as an exit indicator as well. So you could do this with the same indicator. You can do this, like we spoke about yesterday, with the same indicator with a different setting. You can use it with a different indicator. So like for this example right here, we're using the RSI as our entry indicator, right? What if we add a stochastics, right? And again, I'm choosing indicators that I prefer. There's no right or wrong here. What if you use a stochastics and say, hey, I'm gonna exit. I enter my trade based off RSI doing the thing, bow, and I exit once my stochastics dips below the 80 or dips below the 20. And now you're using that indicator to tell you that, hey, at this moment, this is where I get out of the trade, right? And obviously you have to play around with the settings and stuff like that. But those are different ways that you can use indicators in your strategy development. Whew, we got on the indicator rant. Any questions about that? Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you're not laughing too much. Some of you guys are probably feeling a little bit better because you are going through or have gone through the same thing. See, you are not alone. That is why I am here to share my war stories to make you feel more comfortable. So subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're not. We're ever so close to 55,000 and I want to get there. And until next time, plan your trade, trade your plan. Take care. Hope I don't get banned for this.